Todd Leonard is in the studio. Time to talk a little bit more about the book he has in front of him that brings him into Three Sisters for a book signing. First of all, how long have you been writing? I feel this isn't the first venture you've made in this effort.
No. Actually, I've been very fortunate in that aspect, too. I guess my first book came out in the early 90s, soon after I had relocated to Japan. And I started to say earlier I taught English as in the junior high schools, and I was assigned to probably 20 junior high schools. So I traveled every month to many different schools, and oftentimes I was the first foreigner these kids and community had ever met. That's not true today, but back then. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes I was treated as a celebrity because I, of course, stood out like a sore thumb. And that was a very interesting part of the initial experience that I had, being one of the pioneer English teachers that came to internationalize Japan. Basically, that's why the program was started. It's called the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program, and it's sponsored by the Japanese government. And teachers are very well taken care of. And I recommend any of the listeners who have children or are in college and are going to be graduating and would like to have some type of an opportunity overseas that is very safe and well paid and clean, industrial. I mean, Japan is first class nation in that sense. It's just like living in any industrialized country in that sense, first world. So that was my initial experience, and it took a while. I mean, I felt I had no Japanese skills. I mean, I'd lived there for 2 months in high school, but now, of course, I have no problem. I've been there 20 years, and I conduct myself in Japanese on a daily basis with, you sink or swim type of thing. Unfortunately, my Spanish hasn't come in very handy living in Japan.
Well, yeah, that's not surprising.
But I do. It's amazing that comes back. I had a trip a few years ago to Costa Rica, and I wondered, and all of a sudden words started coming out of my mouth, and I thought, wow, where did that come from? I guess I haven't forgotten. But the program itself was a very good, very safe, very well taken care of experience for me to be introduced to Japan. And I did that for 2.5 years, and then the position at the university came open, and they contacted me and said, we understand that you have a graduate degree, and would you be interested in coming here full time? Well, I hadn't even really thought about it. But I said, well, yes, I would. And I thought, well, this might be a nice 2 to 3 year stint, and then I'll probably return. And then, of course, like I mentioned earlier, it's 20 years later, I'm still there. So I call myself the accidental author, like the accidental tourist, in the sense that the book publishing just happened. I had met a professor who asked me he was looking for a cross-cultural book, and he said, I just can't find a good one, and would you be interested in writing one? I can introduce you to a publisher. And he did, and then I published that first book, and I think this is my 20th. I've just written another book that's slated to be published in November, so that'll be, I think, my 20th book. I do lose track, and that I don't because most of my books are English as a second language based books. They're either teaching English as a conversation, listening, speaking, writing, or cultural aspect as well as history. So it's a big industry, and most of my books are for the Japanese market. I do a lot with Macmillan, and I've been very fortunate in that sense that I've been introduced and built up a reputation to where publishers do contact me about publishing books. So it has been a very nice hobby. And when people say, well, you're an author, I still have a hard time accepting myself as an author because it's not something I ever started out to do. It just happened over the course of the past 2 decades. But I certainly enjoy it, and I've been very fortunate. The Shelbyville News gave me a wonderful venue for many, many years. I did a biweekly column, and a lot of this book is based on those columns, actually, that I had written for the Shelbyville News. And they were very kind to allow me that forum to talk about my life in Japan. And I have written a lot of academic articles, of course. Publish or perish is the term, and it's the same in Japan. You're expected to do a lot of research. And so I've done a lot of research-based books, but the majority of my books have been more commercial for the ESL market, English as a second language.